welcome to my channel. Welcome to today's video. Today's video is going to be all about Phytosurgence. I've been seeing a lot of talk about this brand. I wanted to try it out for myself, so I picked up a little bit of everything. The bronzer, highlight, I have some blushes, some eyeshadows as well, and I'm just gonna be giving my first impression thoughts on all of these products. So if that sounds good to you, if you like just first impression videos, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't yet. I would love it if you stuck around. But with all that, let me just scoot you in and we're gonna get started. All right, I didn't wanna scoot you in too close, but at least a little bit. Like I said, I picked up a lot. I picked this up during Black Friday when they were doing their sale. They don't do too many sales. They are just a smaller Canadian brand. So I took the opportunity when I saw it, and it's been sitting here waiting for me to try, and I'm actually really excited. I've heard a lot specifically about their blushes, but let's just crack into all of this. I have the cream bronzer, and this is in shade 2. So let me just open all of this up. Here's what the packaging looks like. And shade 2, we'll kind of see how this looks on my skin. They have really, really detailed descriptions of every single shade that I'm going to be talking about today, talking about the undertones, what it looks like, a ton of information, more than any website I've actually seen, just the best way to apply all of these products. I actually picked up their brushes at the same time, so I'll be using these to apply all these products today and just see if they're worth it. But I really recommend just going on their website and reading all the details to get an idea on what shade you are. But I picked up shade 2 in the bronzer, and it does say like it's very firm to really rub your finger in there, warm it up. It's also pretty cold in this room. This room gets pretty cold. I don't turn the heat on in here, so I'm really having to rub it in. I kind of just wanted to do swatches of everything before putting it on, but maybe we should go one by one, huh? Okay, let's see if I can get this to show up. I think this is the best I'm gonna get it. So here's shade 2, and at the end of this video, I'll pop up my swatch photo of everything. Let's just get started with the bronzer, and we'll go from there. So this is the soft quill brush. This is the one they suggest to use with their bronzer. So I'm just gonna swirl it in, and it says to press pretty firmly on there. And I am getting like some shedding with the brush here, but that's okay. Hopefully it kind of settles down. I haven't used these brushes yet. I'm just gonna go in, kind of bronze where I would. I mean, it's definitely showing up on my face. For as much trouble as I was having doing my swatch, it's there. Hopefully it's not looking too stripey. I'm just gonna take what's left on the brush here, go under my jawline a little, and then I'm gonna rub a little bit more and just do my kind of forehead hairline, because I'm not gonna go in with a powder bronzer. I'm just gonna use these products today. And I did not powder my face before going in. I probably should have said that. I just did my foundation, concealer, and I did powder my concealer. Everything that I'm wearing is always listed in the description box. This is actually pretty nice. I like that it's not that emollient actually. I don't mind having to go in a little bit harder. I would rather do that than have it be too much pigment all at once. Overall though, I like this more than I was expecting. The only con I have right now is just the one brush hair in this, but that's not really that big of a deal. Let's move into the blushes before the highlight. So I picked up 2 blushes and then 3 eyeshadows, 1 highlight. This is an eyeshadow. Of course, the first 3 I picked are the eyeshadows. So in the blushes, this is what I hear everyone talking about, the blushes. I picked up the shade Condensate, And then I also picked up the shade Evaporate, I think, right? Yes, Evaporate. So here, this is much creamier just off the bat than the bronzer. Here's Evaporate. And I want to say I kind of picked up more of their like toasted blushes that are supposed to be a bronzer hybrid, not anything too bright. This is Condensate. This one's looking a little worrisome. Hopefully I can sheer it out a little bit. I don't know what I was thinking. Like I said, this was back during Black Friday. So here is Evaporate. Here's Condensate. I'm swatching a little weird so I can take a photo, but let's see how this goes. I'm gonna do one on each cheek and we'll see. It's gonna look a little funky, but that's okay. I'm gonna start with Evaporate because that intimidates me less. The brush they recommend is the Sky Fluff brush. So it looks like this. And the only thing about this is the brush is bigger than the pot. Just see, I'm gonna go very light since it seems like I decided to go for darker wintry shades. We'll do Evaporate on this side. So I'm just gonna lightly, I'm gonna start here and just tap. Now, I'll be honest with you, typically I would probably use a cream blush with a sponge. I don't really like using fingers, and I find this to be very fluffy. It is pinched, but I'm not sure if I'm loving the brush. Maybe on the other side with the other shade, I'll use the sponge just to see. I mean, it is blending, but I find it's like a little harsh right here. It's not like a seamless blend. It's not as dark as I was thinking though, so that's really nice. It does sheer out really, really beautifully. I kind of keep working this in. Just see, okay, it's blending out, but I feel like it would be faster with a sponge. It is very pretty though. I like this again, like more than I was thinking once it's sheared out, and it's not that sticky on the skin considering how emollient it was when I swatched it, especially compared to the bronzer. The bronzer was just so stiff. Okay, I think I've blended that out enough. Here's what Evaporate looks like on the cheek. And we're gonna go in with Condensate, but I'm gonna go in with my sponge and do it how I just normally would. So I'm gonna pick up a little bit, just like this. See what we're working with here. And I like to start kind of in the middle of where I would apply my blush, just so that way, like if I start it on the apples, it's not too pigmented right away. Just gonna tap this in. I think maybe I wanted something a little bit different than what I have 10 times over in my collection. That might be why I went with Condensate. It's a nice, just dark mauve-y. And again, like it's actually shearing out quite nicely. I went in for a second dip just now to kind of build it up. I can tell you though, I personally prefer using a sponge. I'd rather go back in, dip back in, kind of build it to my preference. Like I'm kind of just going back and forth, getting very little on my sponge here and building it up how I would want. But I'm not getting like weird edges. It's just already blending in. I'm mostly focusing on building. For sure a winter blush. We're going into summer here, so it's not necessarily seasonally appropriate. Not that it really matters, but I don't know if this will be a shade I get use out of in the upcoming months here. Evaporate though, definitely gives like that toasty kind of feel. I'm gonna actually just turn my sponge over, go back in, and just kind of see if I can build this up as well. Yeah, I like that just more, and I can go in with my leftover foundation, kind of blend in the bronzer and the blush together. That's personally like, that's just how I like it on my skin. But there's Condensate, there is the bronzer as well, and then you have Evaporate on this side. Really pretty blends really easily. No complaints so far. Let's get into the highlight. So the highlight is in the same kind of box as the bronzer, and I picked up the shade Divine Daylight. Is it the same size? It is the same size component as the bronzer. So Divine Daylight looks like this. Classic kind of just champagne-y color. That's what I went for. And they recommend using it with the Sky Buff brush, which is very similar to the Sky Fluff, but just a little bit smaller, a little bit denser. And it does say on the box as well to swipe the product with pressure repeatedly until you see the product being picked up, then apply. If you're going to use your fingers, swipe onto skin, tapping is not as effective. I think it's really nice, especially as a small indie brand, just taking the time, and I'm kind of swirling while I'm talking, taking the time to talk about the best way to apply. Just that little thing saying that tapping's not as effective. Some people might write this product off because they're used to tapping a cream product in and then it doesn't work. And then they're gonna think this product sucks. So let me just keep swirling. Same texture as the bronzer, very, very, very firm. I'm gonna try and swatch it first. I got ahead of myself here. And it is a very subtle highlight. Really rubbing in here. It's interesting. I don't know how else to say it. It doesn't have too much shimmer. Actually, almost none. This is a very natural highlight. Not bad. I don't have as many of those in my collection, but I'm just swiping. Okay, I'm swiping back and forth like this. That is helping pick up the product rather than swirling like this. And I've had no hairs come off. So I am going to apply it by swiping rather than tapping. I don't know if I see it. I'm gonna try and pick up more product here. Go on the other side. Maybe I didn't pick up a shimmery enough shade, or maybe it's just a really, really subtle highlight. So far, I'm least impressed by this. I mean, I definitely have product on my brush because it's starting to almost bunch up the bristles. I think this is one of their newer products too, so maybe they need to work out the kinks a little bit. It's warming up. At least you know you can't go overboard with this. It's not picking up my foundation, like it's not lifting it, so that's at least good. I'm kind of seeing a little bit of shine, but I think I'm just used to more, so maybe that's my problem. Also, I'm not wearing my glasses, so that could also be an issue. I'm gonna leave it there. I do kind of right here see a little bit of reflection. I think you can kind of see it as well. We'll see what happens when I put my glasses on. So far, this is like my least favorite, but we'll keep going, we'll keep going. I have 3 eyeshadows, so I don't know how we're gonna do this because I only have 2 eyes. I was thinking 1 on each eye and then maybe 1 as an inner corner. So let me show you the shades I got. For the eyeshadows, I just spent like 10 minutes trying to open one of these, by the way. I had to go and get my husband, and then even he couldn't open it. But we teamed work it together. So these shades that I picked up are Defiant Dahlia. Kind of, this is less of a taupe, but it has like taupe qualities with a brown. Then I have Fractal Frieza. I think this is the one that really got me interested in Phytosurgence. If I remember, Amanda Z talks about this as one of her favorite eyeshadows. And then I have Starlight Symphony, which looks like this. Now these two look very similar. This one's a little bit more warm. This one's a little bit more cool. And then I would attempt to show you my swatches. Here they are. So the top one here, this one is Defiant Dahlia. This one's Fractal Frieza, and then Starlight Symphony right here. So they do not have a brush for these. I think the box says, right? Apply best with fingers swiped and tapped onto the eyelid. And avoid getting onto eyelashes to reduce fallout. Okay, so I'm thinking on one eye we'll go in with Defiant Dahlia. The other eye will go in with Starlight Symphony. Except I really want to use this Fractal Frieza. Let me go in with these two first. So Starlight and Defiant. And maybe, just maybe, I'll take off both of them. And we'll just end with Fractal Frieza. So I'm just going to rub my finger in like they kind of suggest and apply. We're not going to drag this out. I'm going to kind of go a little bit higher than my actual like mobile lid. Doesn't say anything about a brush. Now the texture of these is very interesting. It reminds me a lot of the Ritual Defy eye soots. I've done like a review on those. The texture is like very dry, not creamy at all. Let me just grab a brush here and maybe blend this out. I'm just gonna use this brush. It's my only clean one. It's on my list to wash my brushes today. It blends really easily. It doesn't dry down too quickly, so you have a little bit of time to play with it. And it is a really pretty, just one and done shadow. No complaints about the shade. Has just like a slight amount of shimmer, but really just good for like those everyday minimal makeup looks. I like this a lot. Let's now go into the Starlight Symphony shade. Wiping my finger off here. And I'm gonna apply it to this eye and do the same method. I'm not even finding like there's any fallout. I'm not sure why they called that out about not getting it on your eyelashes. I can't see how you would get it on your eyelashes. I like this a lot. This might be my favorite shade. We'll see, But the cool toned kind of silveriness, I like that a lot. So here we have on this side Starlight Symphony, and then on this side Defiant Dahlia. I think I will just like not be lazy. I'm gonna take both of these off and we'll apply the Fractal Frieza. I have a hard time saying that. So I just reapplied concealer on top of my lids and powdered them down. That's what I did for the first two as well, because if I was really using one of these, I knew that I wasn't gonna go in with an eye primer, so I just used my concealer. But let's go into this one. Now this one is really light, so I would imagine if I was wearing this and not just showing off the color, I would kind of, it's super sparkly though, I would maybe go in with my bronzer in the crease, add a little bit of definition. This has more of a base than I was expecting, and it's super sparkly, but in a very subtle way. It's not like an indie sparkle where it's like has particles to it. This is like a very smooth sparkle. Just gonna apply it a little bit higher. Okay, I can see why this one's so popular. This has less of that really dry texture. This is a little bit more creamy. And I know this is, like, they advertise this as a different formula, so it's not that they're advertising all of these under the same category, and it's just you have to guess what kind you're gonna get. Let me kind of blend this out a little bit. It has more of a base than I was expecting. I kind of thought it was gonna be more of just a translucent sparkle, but it's really pretty. I don't know if you can see the sparkle in it. So now that you've seen all three shades, I'm gonna take Defiant Dahlia, and I'm actually gonna take also like a flat shader. I'm gonna line my eyes and just add some definition. Maybe add this to the lower lash line, see how that works. Kind of just create like a smudged effect. And this is maybe more like how I would wear it. It's a very subtle, kind of smoky. I could go in with a liner, but I just want to try this and see what it looks like. I don't know if that works the best. Maybe it's the brush. So I finished the other eye off camera. I don't really recommend using this as a smudge pot type situation. I'm just using that for the sake of this video. I don't think it worked that well. I did opt to use like a brown mascara just to make it a little bit lighter, more no makeup-y, I guess. But overall, as far as my first impressions, I'm pretty impressed. I'm more impressed than I thought I was going to be. I'm gonna throw up my swatch photo so you can pause it or you can look at it while I'm talking here. My least favorite product, no surprise, is the highlight. It just doesn't have enough impact for me specifically. It is nice though. I can see it on my cheeks here. So it's not that it doesn't show up. It does what it says, but for me and my style, I want a little bit more. But for my look overall today and just the lightness of the makeup, it fits in really well. I'm most surprised by the bronzer. I was not expecting to like the bronzer this much, other than the hair, which is not the bronzer's fault, it's the brush's fault. The bronzer just is a really nice tone. I'm really happy with the shade that I picked. I think they did a pretty good job, as far as I can tell, with the undertones on the bronzer. It's just the perfect buildable bronzer. I like that I can keep it pretty subtle, but it really does something to the face. Sometimes I forget that products can make just slight enhancements to your face and the structure of your face, and that's one of those products. I really enjoy it. Now, as far as the eyeshadows go, I like them more than I was expecting, especially after touching them. I wasn't expecting them to feel so dry like the Ritual Defeat eye soots, and I didn't like those. So after I felt them, my expectations went down, but surprisingly really nice. Fractal Freesia, I don't know if I can pick a favorite, but this one's really pretty for the sparkle. And this one is advertised as a shimmer topper, just so you know. But I really, even though these don't have sparkles, really enjoy the coolness on these. Defiant Dahlia is a pearlescent sparkle, and then Starlight Symphony is a sparkling shimmer veil. So that's kind of the differences between the formulas. I would consider picking up more shimmer shadows, and I would also pick up more blushes. They, I think, launched like a new collection recently. I have to look. But the blushes also just really impressed me with the buildability, but just the subtleness of them. Like, they give impact, but I don't feel it's like, oh, she's wearing an intense blush. Now, I will say, looking more, I don't know if I can tell as much, like from far away, if I can tell the difference between the shades. I don't know if it's coming across more on camera, the differences. I can see overall warmth on the side and overall coolness, but once kind of sheared out, blended out, there's very, very subtle differences. And then just to recap, I have Evaporate on this side and Condensate on this side. You should have seen my swatches so far, and that'll help you decide. Then the last thing I have to talk about before we wrap up are the brushes. You know, I'd save your money. They're okay brushes. Like, I'll use these, but probably not for their intended purposes. This is a nice, you know, blush brush, but I would use this actually more for powder bronzer, I think. And I would use this smaller one more for blush, but I also have kind of like a smaller face, so I tend to go for smaller brushes in general. This stipple brush is nothing to write home about, probably my least favorite. If you have a stipple brush, you have a stipple brush is kind of my opinion. These two, at least, I would get some use out of. But that's kind of my thoughts on Phytosurgence. It was a little bit of a journey to get these to me, I will say. So they are Canadian and they only ship to Canada and the United States If you're in the US, no big deal. I live in Europe, so I sent it to my family who's in the US, and they brought it to me once they came to visit. So that's how I was able to get these, which is fine. But I hope that in the future, they at least either find a third-party vendor or they start shipping international, because that would be really nice if other people could just explore this brand. After that, that's really all my thoughts. I want to just bounce this back to you. What are your thoughts on Phytosurgence? Have you tried them? Are there any shades that you recommend, especially in the eyeshadows? Because I saw that they have like a murky green color. I would be interested in that one. I definitely picked lighter tones. I want something in single shadows. I like something with depth, but I don't want it to be too dark and smoky. It seems like this formula, though, I could sheer out pretty well. So I would love just recommendations on shades if you've tried this brand. If you haven't tried this brand, are they on your list? Are you curious? I would love to know. But other than that, that's where I'm going to leave you all. Hopefully this video was helpful, the swatches helped, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, everyone.